Welcome back to Flashpoint. As we head into this big election year, we're talking about whether or not there are ways to actually improve the way that we carry out our votes. Sandy, I think it's been frustrating to many, many people. For so many years, the states of Iowa and New Hampshire have seemed to have an outsized kind of power over the process. But let's talk in general about the primaries themselves. Should there be, for instance, a national primary to begin with? Should everybody voting on the same day? Secondly, should primaries be open to every voter, or is it really about the party's voters deciding who their flag bearer is going to be?
That's a lot to unpack. I'm going to.
Yeah. Can you get to all that?
Yeah, in 10 seconds or less. So, in terms of Iowa and New Hampshire playing an outsized role in our presidential process, obviously there's a lot of problems with that in terms of kind of the demographics of those two states. However, one of the reasons why they started with small states is to allow candidates that aren't nationally known, like Jimmy Carter in 1976, to gain some traction and to catapult themselves into the national. So if you did a national primary, or if you did like a regional primary, you would then be cutting out the Jimmy Carters, the future Jimmy Carters out there, or potentially even the future Barack Obamas that weren't necessarily all that well known, but were able to ignite a spark in a smaller state.
I can get the beauty of that, but Sheila, it's not just an Iowa primary. These are the caucuses, which are a very strange system of these meetings. It's very elaborate, and it's interesting that has that kind of outsized power.
I totally agree, and I think over time it's become clear that it is not really representative of the nation and sort of national trends as an approach. I think it's fine, it can happen, but it shouldn't set the stage for the rest of the country, and that's what needs to be addressed. The other part of it, though, is while there's a great deal of frustration on people's parts about the party-related pieces of this, I think we really cannot not acknowledge the role that Citizen United and dark money has played in altering the shape of all of these choices that people get to make. That, I think, is as big a problem.
It's hard to argue that. Adolph, would it make more sense if these primaries were open, or should the Democrats be relying on just Democratic voters to decide who the Democratic candidates are?
I think, you know what, you can say yeah, and then you get a George Wallace type situation in 1972 where Republicans crossed over and voted overwhelmingly for George Wallace. Yeah. But I think people should be able to vote in any primary, whether they Democrats, Republicans, or independents. Judge Victoria Roberts in federal court say, you know what, get rid of that 30,000 signature requirement for independents and make it 12 so we can get independents on the ballot. So you got to have a third party, or you got to have people that's not Republicans or Democrats.
Dennis, it's funny. I've mentioned some of the conversations I'm having online with people right now. A frustration I hear every election year is that third-party candidates, what I hear a lot from people is that the media doesn't give third-party candidates a chance. Sure. I would actually argue the opposite. I think the media pays more attention to third-party candidates than voters often end up doing. But we're just a two-party nation, and that's how it was really designed to be, and that's it? Or should we be finding a way for third parties to have better life, more life?
I think we would have to restructure our entire electoral system in order to accommodate what's more like a European system of government, where you have multiple parties forming coalition government.
Parliamentary republic, yes.
I mean, there's a lot of structural change that would have to go into creating a system far more open than what we have right now.
But to Sandy's, well, you were saying earlier, if 40% of the people are independents.
Why not? And so what's preventing independents from succeeding? One, since the Democratic and the Republican Party, and I spent most of my career on the Republican side, electing Republican candidates, so I know how the game is played. There is barriers that the Democratic and Republican parties have put up to any other party from getting in. Adolph mentioned the signature barrier, right? Ballot access is a huge issue. Democrats and Republicans have automatic guaranteed position on the ballot in all 50 states. Independents have to fight, scrape for it. Yeah. Even the contribution limits are different. If you want to give to an independent candidate, there's a much lower legal threshold that you're able to give to that independent candidate or independent party than to a Republican candidate, Democratic candidate, or one of the parties.
We've got about 20 seconds left for you to wait.
I just think for democracy to work, people need to participate. We should open it up. It shouldn't be, the process shouldn't be controlled by any two parties. Everybody should have the right to have their voice heard.
It should all be designed for the doors to swing open
got
rather
it.
than shut. Thank you all very much for being here. A lot to think about as we head into, as I mentioned, what will no doubt be a very consequential and big year in politics. Thanks so much for being here. Meet the Press coming up next, right after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time right back here with Flashpoint.